Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Saturday night sci-fi Shadow Chat. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the root of all evil. That's right, money, money, money. Tonight, we are going to be talking about finances, economics, trade, the whole bit in sci-fi RPGs. I'm going to drop the link into the chat here in just a second. The little guy is going to be joining me shortly, as will Bo. That'll leave us 3 other slots. I see we already have Grim, my good buddy Grim. How you doing? Justin, and I don't know who else is in the chat. We got a couple eyeballs on us right now. Hold on a second, folks. I got a little thing going on here, trying to figure something out. My brand new laptop is being an a-hole tonight, so bear with me. Eternity Eternal, welcome to the show. And I do not understand why I cannot get in to my own show with a device I've been using. Hey, Raven, how you doing tonight? Nope, it's not letting me. That's retarded. So $1,000 piece of shit computer can't compare to a $200 tablet. Go figure, right, folks? But anyways, live and learn. Just waiting for the little guy to join me. I don't know where he is. I know where he is. He's downstairs. But he'll be here shortly. And sorry, no music, because the music is on this device and I can't have 2 windows open at the same time. And for those of you who don't know, Raven is a regular guest over on the Quantum Show with Nathan Allen, which I will be popping into in about 2 hours when the show is over. So it's going to be a busy night for yours truly. Who else we got in here tonight? Mac Thompson, hey, how you doing? Crafting Gamer, good to see you. There is Bo. I don't know where the little guy is. Hey, Bo, how you doing?
Hey.
I see the top of your head. That was funny.
Stand by. I am putting the finishing touches on the kids' supper.
So what do we have tonight?
Baked potatoes with steamed broccoli and nacho cheese sauce.
Okay. I don't do broccoli, but otherwise sounds pretty good.
Yeah, you don't do anything.
Yeah, I know. I'm a monk.
Yeah, you're a monk. You drink only water. You don't eat seafood, offal, or broccoli.
I eat waffles. What are you talking about?
No, awful. Internal. How could you have a Mexican household and not eat things like tripas and lengua and all that really good stuff, man?
Probably because I grew up in California, and I it's like ice cream. If you have it every day, you get real tired of it. There is the little guy. I don't know what the heck that is. Oh, I know exactly what that is.
I haven't used this thing ever, and I saw it, realized this is a good opportunity to use it, so I picked it up. Was extremely surprised by the fact that this thing still actually works, so I am using it now. For the one and only reason being that I can.
Anonymous.
I mean, I suppose that's accurate, in a sense.
No, Justin, not on this piece of crap tablet. Yeah, you got that at the fair many years ago, did you not? That was like pre Kung Flu, wasn't it?
Where is our usual suspects? Where are our 40?
I know. I was just wondering what's happening, James. You want to pop in? The link's up there little ways in the chat. Omen must not be feeling well, or he is two-timing on us with Brian from Weird World War II. In which case, I do not blame him one bit.
If he actually has
And
a game going,
he's probably gaming with Brian tonight. If he knows, if I was him, I'd be doing the same thing. Yes,
Well, I
ice
told
cream
you.
is delicious.
All right, I'm back.
I turned down a gaming night to come and be on this show. That's how much you mean to me.
I appreciate that. As a matter of fact, I was gonna play hooky, but Bo guilted me into coming in and doing the show tonight. And I thought the little guy was gonna do other stuff, but he's here with.
But I am not, and I.
All right.
I think he likes the topic. Sometimes the topic isn't his cup of tea. But hail to the chat, everybody. Yes, he's wearing a voice activated mask he got at the our local fair we have during the summertime. But this was like 3 or 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a long time ago. I'm surprised that the batteries in this thing still work.
They're probably corroded as all get out, but we can fix that.
Surprised if I just kind of die from battery acid leaking into my neck. Don't be surprised.
One of these days, I'll on one of the prep shows, I'll show you our gas mask collection, and they have the voice, the Vox on them, the amplified speakers. So when you're talking through your gas mask, your neighbor can actually hear what you're saying. Your
That's
partner.
cool. Hey, Grandma, how you doing? Mobius? Yeah, I've got 2 Israeli gas masks that are about 30 years old. They're still sealed, so I'm hoping that they'll work.
The cartridges won't be any good, but you can hopefully get new cartridges. There was a website called, no sponsorship, but the website's called approvedgasmasks.com, and they will lay you the rundown on what's been recalled and what's been good and where you can get new cartridges, because the cartridges can break down into hazardous chemicals. So just a word to the wise, just do some homework before you plus pardon me, they're almost like smoke detectors. You have to check them every year to make sure that everything's still good. So just I love you that much.
I guess I'll be getting new ones, because I know actually one of them is opened, and like I said, they're both, I got them both at the same time, and they're well over 30 years old.
They could still be good. I would check all the seals, and if the seals are good, and then just check and see if you can get, if they should take NATO cartridges, and if they take NATO cartridges, you should be able to get new ones. So anyway, the topic tonight is science fiction, like every Saturday night. Yay!
It's gonna be that way until always. There's just not enough love for sci-fi in the gaming community. It's all fantasy 24/7. And
wait, I show up and the first thing I hear is NATO. Kind of cringe.
Kind of cringe. It's just Jack. It's a standard.
I know.
And it's just, that means that we're all taking. It means we're all using the same parts. Hopefully, that means that gas mask filters that you get in Sweden are compatible with gas mask filters that you get in Canada, or compatible with gas mask filters that you get in the U.S. It's just a standard.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
And my standards are pretty freaking low. Present company excluded, of course.
I mean, the fact that you're on this show should tell you that already.
Not that. We're on the same page.
Grim says the sealed one should still be good, but I got to get one for the dog, so I have to get at least one more.
No, the cartridges I wouldn't trust. Just because, I mean, those are sometimes we do trust expiration dates.
Well, the other thing is they're mostly rubber, and I'm wondering about the integrity. They've been in all kinds of climates, from Arctic to to high desert in the last 30 years. So they
do the banana oil test, right? You're going to put on your mask, and then you're going to have Jack with a bottle of something strong like banana oil, and if you can smell it through the mask, then the seal's no good.
Yeah, I actually have some sulfurous smelling.
Well, I mean,
stink
that doesn't.
bomb.
I don't think that's necessary for him.
Hey, what's happening, Brian? I guess Brian is not gaming with Omen because Brian's in the chat and Omen is in the show. Welcome, Omen.
This is the perfect time to mention it. In fact,
We
I'm not going to be on the show tomorrow for the specific fact that it's complicated. It's complicated. But I just want to say this, and I'm never going to mention it again. Slovenia, that's Balkan, and yes, they are stereotyped as being gay.
I'm gonna bring this up. I've been to Slovenia, and you don't know what you're talking about. Anyway.
Oh, I don't know what I'm to ask any Serbian, Croatian, and even Romanian. They were a part of Yugoslavia, automatically Balkan. I don't care how far to the west or far to the east they are. You were a part of Yugoslavia, that's Balkan. And I don't recommend you do this because if it's anything to do with gays, I don't recommend you look it up at all. But just for the fact that I am right, like usual, I'm kidding.
Have you ever been there?
Ever been there? No.
Okay. I'm just gonna say it's one of the prettiest places you can go to. If you ever
I don't mean gay as in
That's
bad.
not helping your argument, Omen.
And I don't even mean gay as in bad. I mean Slovenian men are stereotyped as being feminine. That is a fact.
So are Frenchmen, and yet they still got more women going on them because they're exotic. So just remember that.
Well, yeah, that's not the point.
Hey, you know what? The French have been pretty based lately with their protests. So I don't know. I mean,
just cringe.
No, I'm talking about from even the 70s. So we're going back a ways. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So okay, back to gaming. You two, I swear you're like cats and dogs. Brian says you kicked his butt this afternoon.
We played King of Tokyo. Well, I'm sorry, King of New York, and we played Shadows over Normandy. And I was like, well, let me just try this. And yeah, I feel that it was an unfair scenario. That's why I won. And some lucky dice rolls.
And Six Nations joined the chat. Welcome, my friend. Long time no see. James L. The French are always based. Vive le roi. Okay.
I would agree with you, but Robespierre and stuff. But yeah,
it's true.
The French were admirable for
until the end of World War I, when anybody that had any decent genetic material died in the Somme.
Well, that was the British.
I knew we were homies for a reason. Says James L. No, he kicked my ass. Says Brian. And Justin. Well, the only reason why Omen and Weird WW2 are here is because they done sweating all over each other's. Oh my God, Justin! Why do I let you into the chat? You are such a shit sometimes. But I guess we have to have one guy stirring it up, right? Hey, oh wait, we got
Jack. That was my job.
Hey,
I know, right?
I'm about 40 minutes off of finishing El Cid, so
You know what? Check this out. It's not a big deal, but it's kind of weird. I was watching it, and I'm like not really liking Sophia Loren. She's kind of a can't understand normal thinking type of person, and I paused it to go have dinner, and it paused at 1 hour, 1 minute, 11 seconds, and I'm like, you know what? Screw that. I know, right? So I turned it off because I know I'm not going to get to watch the rest of it until after Nathan's show, which will probably be like 1 a.m., 11 minutes into it, 11 seconds, when his show is finally over. So at least I'll be able to remember what timestamp I left off at. But has anybody noticed that Chuck Heston kind of has that Arnold Schwarzenegger look to him when he was younger?
It's that jaw.
Well, he has
He
a
had,
good jaw. I'll tell you this much: if you get later in there, he gets a beard, and I think he looks even better with that. And Sophia Loren, and I think the other thing we have to remember is this was in an era, despite what we think of, is you kind of married for money. You didn't marry because you loved the woman. and
I thought they were like sweethearts. You know, like,
they are, but I'm saying, but that was an era where you
right,
married
right.
more for family than you did for.
Just need drama. I don't know what to say, man. You probably got plenty over at Max's show Friday night. From what I saw, he was going to do some politics, which I was tempted to do again tonight, but I figured, you know what? Nah, Max probably covered it, and I just want to talk about something different. This is actually Bo's idea. He had a couple of topics that he shot me a while ago, and I think this is one of the few that I hadn't gone over. And since Bo, was responsible for me being here tonight, otherwise I'd be
It's
watching.
pretty obvious that it's Bo's idea because it isn't convoluted.
I'll have you know that I am.
Guys, hold on a second. I gotta go pull a Homer Simpson.
You know what? You can always do what Connell does, which is just
Put him in timeout. You know what? That's right.
No, well, at least you don't do what I do with my son at a certain point. Well, to be fair, Jack's no worse than my son, but
yeah.
I remember one time he was going through it, and finally I was just yelling at him, learn when to shut up. If you don't learn anything in your life, learn when to shut up. If you're in trouble, keep your mouth shut because you're just going to get it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I'd like to do this whole trade thing. I think that Traveler has an excellent thing in the back of the book for that second.
Yeah, I've got a lot of fans of the Ben-Hur movie in the chat. I'm trying to keep up with it.
They all missed the Ben-Hur from what, a month ago or something? It was right before Christmas. Yes.
Jackie, you've got a question.
I assume you mean the name down there that is gone now?
Yeah.
El Restauracionista, the Restorationist. It was the old name that I used for a channel which does not exist yet. Or at least it was the planned name for a channel that does not exist yet.
Oh, I thought it was that he was going to open up a taco bar where you could have the nacho hat on. So
no, we did have taco salad tonight, and everybody in the chat will be quite happy to know that the little guy actually ate lettuce and tomatoes, and finished the whole taco salad. He was quite the trooper. I know that was quite a feat for him. Because he's not a big fan of rabbit food, but personally, I could have done without the beans because I think they're not sitting well. So if you hear any weird squeaking, that's just me.
I'm gonna have to laugh.
Oh yes, it had to be. Of course, it had to be.
With weird, with Brian over there, weird World War II gaming. I was like, look, man, I got a steak. I can feed it to you before you go home. He's like, no, I gotta go home. I'm like, okay, I'll have it. So.
What do you mean you hate them with beans? The beans were the best part.
He didn't say he didn't like it. He didn't sit well with it.
Yes.
No, we're.
If all of a sudden we see him
says
move
I hate it
up,
with beans.
in his seat real quickly, we know what's going on. It's
No. Weird World War II down there says I hate taco salad with beans. That's a heresy.
Well, you saw taco salad. Go watch Real Men of Genius.
Yeah, good point.
No, have you seen that one with the taco salad?
No, I have not.
Go look it up. Go watch it. You'll enjoy it. It's pretty funny. With
Holy
Real Men of
crap,
Genius.
Grandma! You and Bo are like on the same wavelength. Isn't that what you made last night?
What's that?
Homemade navy beans with ham bone.
No, well, they were actually pinto beans, but yeah, we had to do something with the leftover Easter ham. That's probably what RPG Grandma did too. You had leftover Easter ham. You gotta use it up, so you put it in a pot of beans.
Well, which reminds me, Easter's tomorrow.
For Orthodox Easter?
Well, my parents are both, one's Catholic, one's Orthodox, so I get 2 Easter basically.
Right.
So you're like tired of chocolate and eggs, which I find impossible.
He has 2 Christmases. He gets 2 Easters.
well, thankfully I can avoid and how much I go to mass, so that's all. No,
Right. Anyway, yeah. What I was thinking is like when the problem is I see a lot of like either it's like post scarcity science fiction where trade almost becomes irrelevant, or it's just a simple hand wave like in Star Wars where you say, how did the Rebel Alliance get all the money to buy those X-wing fighters? Those things couldn't have been free. So
I'm going to bring up something different though. If you go look at it, it's just like Homeland Defense. They had them because they were there to defend their own stuff. You know, how do you want to put it? It's like the Colonial Army. The Colonial Army in the United States was actually 100 different militias. It just wasn't one unified army. So that's the way I looked at the Rebel Alliance, is they just peeled off.
Right, but
Well, I think that was the whole point.
They all had the same spaceships within reason. You know, they had 3 or 4, but they were all. Anyway, just something to think about. When I think about sci-fi, when I think about science fiction IPs, they almost never actually talk about money.
Firefly does.
Firefly's a good example.
Star Frontier did too, as well.
Yeah. I want to save the talk about digital currencies until a little bit later into the show, because I want to stay in a good mood.
He has a lot to say about that.
12,000 calorie salad. Holy crap.
He's watching Real Men of Genius. Go watch Real Men of Genius. That's where they talk about it. Of course it's healthy. It's a salad. Yeah, go. You know what, Shadow? Go put that up there for taco salad if you can. We'll all be quiet for like the minute and a half so everyone can hear the Real Men of Genius.
No, I can't do that with this device.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
That's why I got the freaking laptop that apparently doesn't understand that this show is going on and I can't go on this show with my new laptop, even though I'm logged in. Don't get me started. But one of my favorite sci-fi series of all times was The Stainless Steel Rat. And even though that was written, a good long time ago, it's about a career criminal, at least in the beginning, where he was literally robbing banks in a sci-fi universe where what he would do is he would go out to the rim where they would actually have to deal with, actual currency and trade, not trade goods, but, like gold and silver and actual like bills of different denomination. And he managed to, pull off some heists. I like keeping a currency in the story, at least, again, on the outer rim worlds, having to deal with, the transferring of funds digitally. You'd have to use, you'd have to have some sort of faster than light communication that couldn't be corrupted. And in all that space, there would just be, ships out there just waiting to collect that data and then, mess with it and then send it back on its way. It would be too easy for, pirates to just make money just sitting out in space, catching, bank signals and diverting it.
Well, you talk about trade, and I can think of maybe it's the dungeon masters that do this now, but I remember as a kid, that was one of the things, whether it's Pirates, anyone remember playing Pirates, the old Sid Meier game?
I wanted to, but I didn't. The only pirate game I ever actually played was The Legend of Black Cat on the PlayStation 1 or 2, I think. Phenomenal game for its time, still very playable. But that was like the only pirate game I ever got the chance to play computer with.
Well, we're really doing, and I'm not trying to knock it as, I'll say for the Caribbean, you're going back and forth between different countries that are different places that have it, and they talk about it. But you're right. I think that it's more of the modern players don't integrate it as much as they should, because if you actually, even when you look at 40K and stuff, you still get the agricultural worlds. You'll get the various other worlds too. Yeah, you know what, Justin? That's to improve your language. So get up there. No, I'm just giving.
Yeah, I'm like, I've read both, and I'm like, clearly, it was written in like the late 50s, early 60s, I believe. The language, I liked it because it had that pulpy feel to it. Maybe that was what was going on there.
I think the language
But-
is, to be fair on this, whether it's the Dying Earth or anything else, the language, whether it's Conan, it's more evocative than the stuff that you see nowadays. They don't really get into.
Yeah.
They either over describe. They'll be like, he's a 6-foot man, blah blah blah. Whereas the other ones, it used to be he's a lean, tall man with piercing blue eyes. And it kind of leaves it more to your imagination while evoking more of the feel rather than trying to just put it down to statistics, which is one of the reasons. Anyway, I don't want to get off on that topic. I want to talk about trade since that's where we are.
Yeah.
But no, well, I just remember, I think it's Star Frontiers and Traveler, and I was trying to find my Coriolis book because I know it's somewhat in there too, is that trade is very important, but I think part of it comes down to, well, let's even talk about Alien. Alien, they're transporting ore from one place to another.
Yep.
So it's there, but I think it's used more as a backdrop than actually as a.
And that's what we're talking about. How do you make it not a backdrop in your games, right?
Well, you don't make it a backdrop by making money important, which I know is, as much as I talk with Shadows, like I kind of like hand waving. When you start talking about mega units, whatever it is, megatons or stuff like this, the difference in cost between, a few credits, even 4 or 5 credits, is millions of credit difference where you can either make or break your ship. And I think that's but you have to get away from the military aspect as much. You have to really focus more on the space trucker side, I think, if you're going to be making trade important. Because, Firefly, as we talk about it, but, what was they transporting Firefly? In some case, they were transporting...
Cupid dolls?
Well, one time they were transporting cows. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that allows all that interactivity from that aspect. But I think a lot of times we as players want the fast action and everything else and less of a simulation.
If I'm gonna, because I'm gonna be running some Traveler, a lot of people I know really got into the the mercantile commerce, just back and forth, buy low, sell high kind of thing, and I'm like, this is just a more advanced version of papers and paychecks. Not a fan. Smuggling and trying to get by the man and do that sort of thing. I can get behind that. But where you're just buying X good and going to sell them and then going back and forth, that's a game that you should play like by yourself on a computer, maybe.
Things that we've dealt with, in our games is like, how do you in a sci-fi game now, not a modern not maybe a modern day game now since cash has become almost irrelevant, but how do you bribe the guard in a sci-fi game? Right? You need to get past the guard. How do you bribe the bureaucrat to get the license that you need? How do you bribe the bureaucrat to get the exit visa for your spaceship? If your spaceship is stuck in a dry dock and you've got to get it out.
Yeah, you can't be going, here, can I, cash out me the bribe? You can't have that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's the question for the quorum. That's the question for the group. How do you run things like that? And I can tell you how I've done it in my game since we play my game, but I can't tell you how you do it in your games.
Well, I'm going to bring up the other aspect, which is I kind of like hand waving that, but to me, you're doing the majority of, how do I put this? The players should be telling you on their downtime what they want to do for transporting goods. And the play is when you put a complication in there. A perfect example is, okay, we're going to be transporting this ore. Well, some cases, the players know that they can get really big money if they're willing to get a high interest loan. And if they get a high interest loan, then the choice is either losing the ship or dealing with the mafia boss or something like that. When they find out that they went from point X to point Y, and point Y actually has less, and they need fuel, they can't go anywhere, they're trying to get rid of this load, then that's when you throw in your adventure. To me, it's a setup for the adventure. You don't need to do it within game as much, because at a certain point, I don't want to have to play bribing the guards and all that. It's fine if it's the same guy, if you go in the same place over and over. But sometimes it's what I call it, half spaceship and will travel, where they go just from anywhere to anywhere. But if you can get actual routes, then you want to know who's here and who to bribe and who's the criminal underlord and who do you have to sell and who do you have to grease. But a lot of that can be done called the downtime aspect of it. And then it's okay, well, what's going to happen here? Well, suddenly there's a war. I can't transport anything. So I think that's a way of preventing it from getting bogged down for the normal day-to-day game, but it allows you to do the setups for everything else. And the other part is players always want to buy new crap for their ship. So I think that's important. So I think that there's ways of incorporating it where the players can do that. I know that Saxius over on Yield Geek loves doing stuff like this. So
what do you think, Shadow?
Personally, I like that interaction with the NPCs, the bribing and the the haggling, so to speak, and that whole federale sort of feel to it, where they want more than you have, or they want everything that you have, and then you're kind of in a new situation, having been in that situation before, and I like coins, or because like even in Star Wars, when Han Solo, after he blasted Greedo, he flipped the bartender a coin.
Exactly.
I like the idea of cold hard cash, whether it's coins or bills. I think that as I'll get to it in a few minutes, with digital, you run too many risks that up until now we're only realizing the dangers of that to the average citizen, and that's the way you get civil wars, if not worse, when the government starts turning off your money because they don't like your social credit score or whatever. That's not
something that I am certainly using or certainly thinking of using in my story, though to a certain extent I don't feel it's necessary for reasons that aren't necessarily important here. But I do see that as not a certainty, but an almost certainty in that kind of economic model. Not model.
You would
currency system.
I'm looking at this regional currencies. Absolutely, you have regional currencies. The other thing is, no one's defining
there, and then you've got the currency exchange guys and the money lenders. That whole old-timey feel. Where suddenly your money's not worth as much, as a way, again, for the GM to be able to kind of bilk the players, and put them in dire straits again because, well, you went to this planet instead of that planet because you're trying to duck the law. Well, it's going to cost you, and then it's going to cost you again because when you try and trade in your credits or whatever you've got, whatever coins, you're going to lose a little more and a little more and a little more. Not quite nickeling and diming them to death, but kind of.
I also wanted the opportunity to set up the underground economies. Reminded of the scene in the first Star Wars prequel when Qui-Gon Jinn goes to buy an engine for a spaceship, and he's like, "Well, that money's no good here." we only take this money here. Well, I'm sorry, you don't have the right kind of money. And then all kinds of hilarity ensues. And you mentioned that Shadow exchange rates. Well, yeah, you can go over to the temple and trade out your credits for denarius, but if the exchange rate's bad that day, or if the local mob boss decides that they want a thicker cut, well, now you've got all kinds of shenanigans ensue. And depending on the edition, now Open, I understand what you're saying about games like Traveler where you are captaining a starship or something like Rogue Trader, but there are something maybe like a Star Frontiers where you're a band of mercenary bounty hunters or something. Then the economy scales, right?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Is it depends on when we're talking about just trade. And when I'm thinking trades, I'm thinking that you're actually transporting big stuff. And
Hello,
you're
DM James.
the other thing is, if we're talking about credits, everyone's treating it as it's regional money. It can also be, I don't want to call it a full barter, but let's say that I'll use something from Star Trek, dilithium crystals. Each credit equals X amount of, it could be like 1 gram of dilithium crystal or something like that. So at that point, it's money, but it represents physical goods. Well, guess what? If all of a sudden the planet is full of dilithium crystals, your money doesn't mean very much, because that's what I'm trying to say is when we're talking about money, a lot of times we're talking before they went to digital, before they went to fiat currency. It used to be gold. A dollar represented X amount of silver. It was like 309 grains or something of silver.
Mm-hmm.
A pound represented a pound sterling of silver. Those actually meant a physical quantity. So if you start making regional currencies in certain things, like this one's oil, this one's water, this one's steel, this one is uranium, this one's dilithium, then it isn't directly comparable, because now they're going, okay, we live on Caladan. It's a water planet. Your water credit means nothing. But if you go to Dune, your water credit means everything. So that's, and yet.
Also, the fact that gravity differs on certain planets, so the whole, this is a pound of silver, this is whatever, isn't going to be the same.
No, it works the same because it's actually based on mass.
If it's based on mass?
Well, pound mass and pound, trust me, I took engineering. There's a pound mass, there's a pound of force. The two are not exactly identical, which gets you into slugs. But we aren't going to get into that.
Yeah, I know that's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the thing that it is.
Well, mass doesn't change wherever you go. So gravity doesn't change that. But that's what I'm trying to say is, but we talk about coins, you could have different coins or credits, and it represents a certain amount of a resource that's in there. And of course, that's the way that the United States used to work was, hey, to be fair, this is how it used to work before we had fiat banking, was it always represented a physical quantity, and we used whether it's a coin or a piece of paper to transfer it over. So that was the thing, like, oh, this is $10. Well, $10 represents X amount of silver, and then people knew that they could trade that in for silver. It's only whenever you get the fiat currencies, which is why I don't like digital, exactly like Shadows talked about. Digital works fine if you don't. I think it works fine, but it works fine on a more local level. But I don't think it works as well for international.
A Bitcoin is not a fiat currency per se, because it is based on a known prime number, and there's only that one prime number for that currency. So it is there are a finite amount of Bitcoin in the universe.
Well, but here's the thing: not everyone would take Bitcoin throughout the universe.
No,
and the other part is, James, I was talking about energy. Exactly. If you don't have the communication, Bitcoin's worthless. Try using Bitcoin in a desert where you have no cell phone reception. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, but you know what does work? If I'm in the middle of the desert, a flask of water. So now we can talk.
Now we're talking about bartering, not currency.
Well, no. Remember what I said is that currency can be related to a physical object.
No, but then again, right? But a paper dollar that's based on a gold or silver standard is still a paper dollar.
It's a paper dollar, but it represents where you could trade it in for a silver.
Right, but that paper dollar that's worth a gallon of water is not worth anything if you can't get the gallon of water on your planet.
Well,
They take a million paper dollars that are redeemable for 1,000,000 gallons of water and take them to Arrakis, and if there's not a millions of gallons of water to trade it for, it's just as worthless as the fiat currency.
well, but that's where currency. No, it doesn't come into it because they're going to charge you more for the water because it's more valuable there. That's what I'm trying to say. But again, you have it. It represents whether you're in the siege or something like that. Is if you say you have 1,000,000 gallons of water, guess what? You can trade that back and forth, which is kind of what happened.
Right, and that's what they did in Dune. But those coins that the Fremen carried were based on water that was on Arrakis, not water that was on Caladan.
Right. But again, that's why we're talking about trade. You have to trade between the two.
Well, you have to establish a common currency then, or you have to establish actual trade.
No, that would be a regional currency. Remember, a lot of stuff is regional currencies. You're trying to use an interstellar currency, which is where I said that you're going to have problems with.
Which is
Sorry. I love this comment I just put up. I don't see how anyone would be able to take a loan in a sci-fi unless there's a robust and aggressive reclamation system to bring in those who are lapsed in their loan payments. Bounty hunters, man.
and actually, I did
tracers, whatever you want to call them.
In my game, things like debt slavery,
Hello, Hungar.
debtors' prisons, and
Hey, what's happening? I'm a little behind on the chats, guys. And this one was hysterical. Remember when Captain Kirk and crew needed dilithium for the ship, and the miners needed women?
Yes, I do.
That was from Grandma.
You can graft it. You just can't power it, Justin. That's the whole thing.
That was Mud's women.
Yep.
It's like you know what? I can carry. I can drag a bunch of guns, but I can't fire generally more than two.
Hey, we got DM James and Hungar in the show tonight. Awesome. Welcome to the show, guys.
And when we talk about currency,
take care, Raven.
I think this is where regional comes into it, and regional cost, and it just depends on what's in there. And you're right. If you have to be able to access it as well, which is why you would have banks. Well, no, the gold standard still works. It just doesn't work in modern countries.
It doesn't work when bankers want to trade fake money for real assets.
Well, no, my point is that if you look at it, there's plenty of metal that's there's plenty of metal if you go to the Middle East and stuff. They still have gold standards and stuff, even if they don't directly say it. Ice pirates. There you go. That's my whole point. Is there's always trade. You can always find something. You have to find what's valuable. I think part of the problem that we have is if you have interstellar travel, why don't you have enough material for whatever you need? That's the thing I think that comes into it. That's one of the reasons I did not like what's it called? Star Trek, because they had the replicators, so it made trade pretty worthless.
And not only did it make trade worthless, that's it, but I made, well, a lot of problems I have with the economy of Star Trek. For example, you see a lot of spaceships, but you never see any privately owned spaceships.
Well, they had some.
That's because Roddenberry was an out-and-out commie, so yeah.
Well, he did it the first, in the old series he did, but it's only in the later series where it became really utopian, like the Next Generation. And
right, and which is weird because how did Picard have that gigantic vineyard in the family, but there was no money?
Because they were aristocrats.
Yeah, that sounds very, very much like a Roddenberry holdover. But
I think some of it is, we talk about Roddenberry, but when did Roddenberry die? And then
the early 90s.
Oh no! I mean they took to heart what they knew he wanted.
Yeah, well, actually they didn't, because they started bringing in things that he said he would never allow.
Oh really?
Like he said that he was never going to allow non-human. Like it's okay if you're humanoid. That's where like Vulcans and stuff and Romulans, those were fine. But when they started bringing in like the Deep Space Nine, where they were not humanoid,
Oh,
and then
really?
he says, he said that was he wouldn't allow them to occur more than in one episode. He didn't want them to become recurring
We also
characters.
didn't see a character, a free trader until Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, they were the either the villains or comic relief in the original series. Cyrano Jones, Harry Mudd, they were they were comic relief.
Well, that's true. It's the black market items. That's weapons. That's drugs. That can even be like in North Korea. That can even be entertainment or news. Yeah, but it doesn't make sense if you can replicate stuff in a replicator. Then you don't really need that much. But if you're living on an agricultural world, which is why this is what I think really helped out so much with Firefly, is you got frontier worlds. They don't have major manufacturing, so you need these ships to transfer back and forth to bring the agricultural stuff. You know, how you can bring in a tractor? You know, well, we can't build tractors here that much. Okay, well, we'll go transport a bunch of tractors and combines to you. I think
in trade for X tons of whatever it is you're growing, type of thing. Yeah, I really think that it's going to be kind of a funneling effect. Everything, is going to be, moved toward the center of the empire. Let's call it the known universe, what have you. And the further away you get from it, the more likely you're going to have regional currencies, paper, coin, whatever, beads, on different planets, crystals, that sort of thing that people are not going to be able to, do the digital currency like Traveler always sort of did when you get to these places out on the rim. It's just not going to work. How hard or how easy would it be to fake having billions of mega credit on your data pad, on some backwater world?
Well, the problem that really comes down to it is, like Bo was talking about, is we can't use these credits. I need food. Just because you have all these credits doesn't mean anything. So then you're going to kind of get the Firefly, which is, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to bring the combines to World X. From World X, we're going to grab a bunch of corn and move it to World Y until the point that you can finally get somewhere we can actually trade it for actual money. Then you can actually build something. Those are the things that I think that comes into it. And I think actually the Expanse did a pretty good job for having a trade system, talking about things. I thought that worked out. I think it's, if you've noticed, it's always integral to the story, but it's never integral to the main plot of the said story. It's always the background that sets up everything. Whether it's Alien, when they're talking about ship shares, you got to go to the planet, otherwise you lose your share for the ship. Yep. I mean, that's where you can, and again, it allows your players to go, screw that, ship shares mean nothing if we're dead. So we're not going to stop at the planet. You go, okay, now what are you going to do? Because you just lost, 8 years of your life and you forfeited everything that you would have earned. The other part is you always want to get characters into debt. Debt is what really drives a lot of the story. Is I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's the kind of thing that if you are transporting corn, what happens if it has a bunch of fungus and stuff on it and it rots?
Take care, Grim.
You lost all of that value for it.
Graham. We'll talk tomorrow or Monday, okay, bud?
Well, what happened with Spice? You couldn't leave the planet for the most part. So everyone, and once you started taking Spice, it was a death drug. You were physically addicted and it would kill you, which meant you had to keep buying Spice. So, of course, the Navigators did that. And I mean, could you imagine all the people that were addicted to Spice? Now that was the other part that I did not like about when I read Dune. They were talking about how some of the tradesmen, they live on the planet for a while and then they would leave, after they made their the carry halls. But, once your eyes kind of turn blue, you're addicted to Spice, which means you can almost never leave. So now, you get that weird thing, which he didn't mention too much in the book, but that's what happens. Now I made all this money, but I have to keep buying spice, otherwise I'm going to die. Yes, it extends life. Yes, it extends consciousness. But if I don't take it, in a certain amount of time, I'm going to die. And so
drugs are bad.
yeah.
Drugs are bad.
Drugs are bad, except spice if you get plenty of it, and then they mutate you into these weird fish things.
Why would you want to be a fish though?
Because you could travel the universe.
But like you're a fish.
Yeah. How is that so different from being a human?
Cause like I don't know.
No, hey, Jack. When you were super tiny, you look like a fish too. Super tiny, and you also probably look like a bean. I know because I had a sonogram, so for my son, so he looked like a little bean.
Exactly. Back.
But I think that's one of the cool things that comes about for it is, especially with spice, there will always be people who want it. You need it for the guild to travel the universe, so you need it for there. And then the other part is that whether it's the Bene Gesserit or the elite who can afford it, they have to have that spice both to keep their lives longer and to deal with all the political intrigues. So,
in science fiction, it's really easy to make a galaxy or a universe or a system just a larger version of a planet in terms of trade and economy and kingdoms and principalities and empires that in Dune's a good example. In Dune, well, this planet's got all the water, so it trades rare fur, whale fur or seal fur or something to another planet for their gizmos and whatchamacallits. And it's real easy to make planets not self-sufficient on a macro scale.
Well, even if they are self-sufficient, I'm not trying to knock it, is even when they are self-sufficient, let's be honest, money's usually not in commodities, money's in rare items. So all of a sudden, if you can find like certain gems, which are just a sign of status symbol, anyone remember when they were selling bling water?
Mm-hmm.
Which was $27 a bottle. The only reason that you're buying that water is not because it's anything special, but it's to show that you can afford it. And it's to show off your prestige. And so that's what goes in.
Pretty funny, Grandma.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's part of the reason I like the Rogue Trader, when you can be a navigator in there with a third eye. I always love it when they're trying to sue people for it. Like, you stole everything from Dune and Star Wars and all these other IPs. So shut the hell up when you start complaining about Space Marines.
Judge Dredd.
Well, I saw one of the things where they're talking about Space Marines. I forgot where I was reading it.
Starship Troopers.
Well, no, it was before Starship Troopers, actually.
No, the book came out like 1956.
Yeah, but no, the term
Where did Space Marines came from?
No, Space Marines came before that.
Space Marines did come before that, but the 40K Space Marines are fairly clearly influenced. The Astartes are straight up Starship Troopers.
Oh, well, they stole everything from everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whenever I start hearing things like this is nothing unique, but I just thought it was funny. But I think the term Space Marine actually comes from like 1932 or something. It goes way back.
It comes. It comes from a book, but the word Space Marine, but not the concept of the armored.
Well, the power.
That's clearly Heinlein, which you got to admit was pretty damn far ahead of its time.
It's true.
I still like the fact that when he's talking about you had to know how to fight with a knife. But now it's ubiquitous in just about every game, whether it's Traveler or Duelist. But these are the great things I think about it. But that's the other part too, is if you're going to go over and let's say that you're going to, if we're going to talk about Casablanca, you're running weapons. You still have, there's a lot in there of, okay, you're smugglers.
I agree, DM James. I always pictured the Starship Troopers, powered armor being, almost like a mech.
Well, it's probably the size of their Terminator equivalent, but yeah,
It's, well, they're in the suit. You're like 7 foot tall, but they're normal guys. But they said you look like a hydrocephalic gorilla because
yeah,
they've got the bubble helmets and the big, and it's. But you don't drive power armor. You wear power armor.
yes. But
Unlike a mech,
I
you
mean,
pilot a mech. You don't pilot power armor.
but again, the whole point is now you can bring those suits over to help. It actually expands to the same thing. Everyone's been stealing from everywhere in space. That's why I like
Forever.
that, and they've been doing it for centuries. But if you're suddenly going to bring it in, if you're a small frigate, which is one of the things I love, you can go in there and you can drop. Let's assume that you're a small frigate. If they're the size of a gigantopithecus, I'll just use that because I think that's a good, 10-foot tall humanoid. I think that's a good aspect. Well, how many can you fit in a hold? Well, in this case, it's like my room is 15 by 20 or so, or I'm sorry, like 15 by 15. I could probably put in, 6 or 7 power suits. So you can sneak these things in small quantities. And well, how much are they going to cost you? Well, it's going to be this. And then, of course, this comes back down to your bribing of officials. And, that's, to me, commerce is so important to the game, even if the players aren't playing in commerce, because everything depends on it. And
You should,
and
one way or another, even in, societies where the government is in control of everything, they still have to deal with the outside, of their particular empire or system or what have you.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's one of the biggest, if not the biggest problem with socialism, is that the government doesn't have the means to run the economy, so it just collapses.
Well, it's not just collapses. It's still capitalist, whether you realize it or not. People don't want to talk,
State capitalism.
but it's
They're
but
getting too far into the weeds.
no, it's still capitalist, but it's now all black market capitalist.
Well, yeah.
It's that's why when you go over, it's like sugar. Sugar and salt can be a huge thing if all of a sudden you're going to a world that has mostly, doesn't have sodium. You can remove an element, and all of a sudden sodium is absolutely crucial to live. So you get that, or it's very rare. You're going, okay, where are you going to get this? Mining equipment, that's always crucial. Let's not forget is how many times are you well, that's fine. I don't care if they change.
Welcome to the show, Charlotte.
What's the other one that you can get? You can get gaskets or things like this. So even if you have these big ships, only whenever you start making mega credits, then you do not worry about the individual, and then you worry about and how many you get. And that's where I don't mind it coming in the abstract system. Is once you start getting into the mega credits, you know what? $1,000 here and $1,000 there is pretty meaningless. But now you're
Kind of.
well, it's effectively meaningless at that point for you. But if I have to carry 20,000 guns, now we're talking about that's large enough that I actually have to allocate that money for this.
Right. These are totally different scopes of gameplay. Although neither exist in a bubble. But I mean, if you're on the crew of the Firefly, then $10 really matters. Whereas if you're on a large rogue trader, $10 you don't even care about.
Exactly.
It's always going to matter. And if you're playing a game that does run from a zero to hero situation, when you're the zeros, the $10 is always going to matter.
Right. But as you start moving up, as you become more powerful or more influential is probably a good phrase, then things are going to start coming to you. So then you start worrying about, you may worry about the price of rice because you're transporting 100 megatons or something.
Oh, and to answer Charlotte's question, the way a planet stays livable if you remove one element, the life there could have just evolved to not need said element, or it could be there but in such low supply, or in the case of sodium, people like things being salty, but they themselves don't require it to live.
Well, or they could be deathly allergic to salt. That's the other aspect too. It's
Well,
like
yeah, if they're deathly allergic to salt, but if they are deathly allergic to salt, then they wouldn't be buying salt.
well, right. But I'm saying,
Which the point you were making was about how, like, if they don't have anything there, then it's going to be super valuable.
well, and it could be used against an enemy. So this is where trade comes in. It's in smuggling. But I'm looking at where Justin's saying 5 digits. It depends on the type of space trucker you're playing. That's why I was talking with Alien. Alien has, like, you make a certain amount because you have, I don't want to call it ship shares. You have the ship shares, which I know is in Traveler, but then you also have your individual account as well. So I think that's where you sometimes get the multiple aspects for the game. It's like, okay, what does my individual person have? It's just like these people on the freighters that travel around. They may only be making $50,000 a year, so of course they have to count on what they're buying. But these tankers are carrying probably billions of dollars worth of goods. So now your aspect, which is, okay, where are you playing it at? And the other part is you still have to pay off the ship. So that's the other part, though. But yeah, the Firefly, I think, works really well at the low levels.
The potatoes done?
So, but yeah, I just have to laugh. But the black market means so much. This is one of the things I liked about it, which was, what was his name? Milton Friedman talking about cigarettes. When there were too many cigarettes, people smoked them. And when there weren't enough cigarettes, people held them as cash. And that's what they did at post-World War II, in many cases.
And World War II? I know you need salt to live, but we're talking alien planets, alien life, so possibilities galore.
Well, and it's absolutely critical if you have a colony there who has to have salt.
Yeah, that could be another thing.
Yeah,
You're
so of course
right.
they're going to trade for that. Yeah, so yeah, the salt you need it for, but we're talking for humans. But if there's something there that functions with no salt, that's one aspect. But then the people there, so then they're going through it like, okay, we need to go back and forth. But that's the point. It's by scarcity you force trade.
Exactly.
You don't force trade. It's kind of like whenever you look at a full refrigerator and someone says, "Hey, man, I got a good deal on lettuce." You're like, "I got 800 pounds of lettuce. I don't need any more lettuce." You can't sell it.
Jackie knows that feeling all too well.
Well, but that's what I think that's the other important part is what happens. That's because I like using real world examples, like the tulips. Anyone remember the tulips in the Netherlands?
Yeah.
And then there was this
giant, crazy.
And then
that was just absolute insanity.
And then it collapsed. So could you imagine that you're these you have all this agriculture and you say, oh, they want tulips, and you're going from one place to another, depending on how fast you travel. Again, if it's instantaneous travel, that's different. But if it's the kind of travel where it takes months, in between, then all of a sudden you get to the planet and you find out everything's collapsed there from tulips.
And
like, I'm screwed.
And then it'll give it to you. You can't eat a tulip. Well, maybe you can. I don't know.
Maybe the Dutch can. I don't know.
You can.
And you can.
But we had some Dutch.
Would you want to?
They ate it during World War II when they had no food. People forget just how bad. Everyone talks about the wars, but people forget sometimes on the ground and how bad it was. But again, that comes just like water for a dune.
Right.
But what did they say? The other part is you get the Spacers Guild that won't allow water to come to Dune
because it would kill the worms.
Well, they never specified until later on what that did, but yeah,
right.
Yeah, but that was it. Remember how they said they wouldn't terraform it? They said we're looking at terraform. They
wouldn't allow weather satellites, right?
Yeah, and then the the Fremen were paying off the guild to make sure that certain satellites couldn't see over certain parts of the planet.
Right.
I thought that was kind of funny. So you get that other aspect too. That was the other part is if you have a weather satellite, we talk about everything for trade. There's also trade in information and rumors. Can you tell me what's going on over in this world? Okay, yeah, that's always worth money as well, and that can be used to bribe. We talk about bribing. That can be used to bribe other ones too. Information's worth a lot of money. So if it isn't, we wouldn't have the NSA.
Right.
Ship share can be of the cargo hold, but it can also be a percentage of what the ship costs, which is how Traveler does it. You have a certain percentage in the ship.
Right. All right. I've got to take care of some business.
Okay.
No worries, Bo.
He'll be back.
Yeah, I haven't quite looked at it, but I was looking at which I kind of want to buy, but I always buy things on sale now, even if they're new. I saw that Modifius is going to bring out the different houses, and I didn't, not that I'm a huge Dune fan, but I liked reading it and listening to it. But what did Caladan sell? Rice. Rice was their big production that they sold. Yeah, you know what, Dungeon Master James? I don't believe that. That's why the Space Marines are bad guys, just like they were in the original. It's the only ones that matter are the children of the Emperor. What were they called? The Solari or whatever they were called.
Well, I can't agree more, DM James.
The Emperor is only kept alive because people don't want to allow him to come back. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Some of the stuff I've read is pretty evil. Sacrificing 10,000 psychers a day so he can keep on living. That sounds like a monster to me.
Nah, that's all just propaganda. Don't believe a word of it.
He sacrificed the psychers to keep the beacon, so the rest of the
well,
keep it still
as a psycher, I gotta worry.
You can be sanctioned. If you're sanctioned, you're okay.
Really, what happens when you're the last, one of the last 10,000, and the Emperor wants to live one more day?
He doesn't want to live one more day. That's the thing they aren't talking about. The problem is they put him in the golden throne so he can't die. And because he can't die, the Star Child can't get reborn. So they there's some weird things that go on with that one. but yeah, they made him too nice nowadays. That's the problem I have with it.
Yeah, what's 3 billion when you can just print it? No kidding, right?
Yeah. Well, deficits don't matter. Then I'm going, okay. Then why do I have to pay taxes?
Mm.
If deficits don't matter, you don't need taxes.
Yeah, I don't really want to get into that because that would just give me just steam coming out of my ears.
Yeah, we all know how certain people get with that topic, and he certainly is one of those certain people. Of course, I will not allow that word to come out of my mouth, but still.
I'm anti-fascist. I'm like, leave me the hell alone. This is why if I'm ever going to play, it's always on a rim world. I don't want to be anywhere near the center of the universe. It doesn't interest me.
Anti-fascism has always been a communist movement.
Well, no, anti-fascism has been the very nature of human beings for the most part.
Not necessarily.
Nope, it's all because of the sun god.
What?
No, it has to do with there's a joke about that, which is it has to do with the sun.
Yeah, I don't know that joke.
Well, it's not a joke. Actually, it has to do with the fact as we became more and more civilized, instead of merit being moved up, it starts coming down to they start getting bigger and bigger things in there. So but I was hearing them talk about it, but basically it has to do with society. As society gets bigger and bigger, the systems begin to calcify, and so people in power tend to be less there because of merit, and they tend to be there more because of rank and title and who their parents were. So that's why you get someone like what's his name, King Charles, who's a complete idiot, or King, or look at Spain. This is why whenever I hear the monarchs, I'm like, no, monarchs don't have any kind of merit base to it, and this is why they always screw up after about 3 generations.
Not necessarily. They give the people. I mean, obviously, a fully absolute monarchy is a ridiculous concept, but it's no more ridiculous than a semi-constitutional, or not a semi, than a fully constitutional monarchy, or even a republic for that matter.
Well,
Yeah, we will need a special rant show, won't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically for like.
Okay, let's go back to trades. Let's stop arguing about this because the one that was the best was the Spartans. The Spartans lasted longer than anyone else.
Yeah. We need to wait for a special rant show before we start talking about this stuff. We're here for trade and sci-fi stories, not about the validity of certain government systems and ideologies.
Well, the best things that work are local. I just don't want Justin access. Well, you know what? We're talking about this is let's not forget medical care. That's the other part too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're talking trade.
How do you cover that? How do you cover that if, you're well, depending on the world, there's going to be different systems in place. But, for the most part, it just makes sense, I think, to keep your adventures as far away from the core, the center of the government and the empire or the galaxy or however you're running your sci-fi scenario. Keep it to the outskirts. That way, you can kind of keep it a little more loose, a little more fun. And, every time, for example, like with Firefly, every time they went anywhere near, real life civilization, I just got this freaking gnawing in the pit of my stomach, just like, oh, this is not going to go well. Like when they tried to do the hospital robbery, I'm just like, this is not going to go well. This is a bad idea. I mean, obviously I've seen it many times, but the very first time going through it, I'm like, not going to be good. Not going to be good.
I'm going to mention the other one though, is it's fine if you want to play a very political game, but most players don't want to play a very political game. What they want to do is they want to have the pulpy style of an adventure and have fun, or they want to have that freedom of movement. It's the same reason that I don't like military games, because you're not determining where you go. The GM is determining where you go. That's what gets me about. The other part is, for trade, people out more on the frontier do things by handshakes and things, and then as you get more, then when you get closer to the inside where they can enforce contracts, which someone was talking about, then you get more formalized contracts. So,
Brian, can you elaborate on this? Because my head's like not wrapping.
I'm not being able to
wrap my head around that particular phrase. I like personally, I like rugged individualism. That's me. I want to be able to do more and more stuff on my own, and if that means trekking out to the woods somewhere and disappearing after the little guy is gone off to college or the military, or he's married and got kids. I don't know how good a grandpa I'm going to be, but I know if I gotta put my hand under a scanner every time I want to buy something, not gonna be on board with that.
Oh, and James L, very based. I agree.
So
we gotta get away from the real life political thing. We gotta get back to the actual topic. Because
and see, I don't mind people using real topics of trade. Let's go use another one that I'm going to use a little bit. Is the cochineal beetle? Is it, if I'm pronouncing that right?
Good luck with that, Justin. We're cruising up to the last 45 minutes. I'm going to keep this one pretty tight and end it at the 2-hour mark. with the things that have been going on lately when it comes to digital currency, credits, however you want to look at it, it's not going to be, up until maybe a year or two ago, like with the trucker thing in Canada, where they were just shutting off their bank accounts because the government didn't like what they were doing, or saying, or even thinking. What's going to happen on a galactic-wide or a planet-wide system when the powers that be can do that? Because they would, as soon as the PCs become wanted fugitives or whatever, depending on the planet they're on that has that kind of a thing. They would just push a button and the players would be like wanting to kick your ass as the DM, because that's what would happen. The government would shut your money down and go, oh, you don't have it anymore, and we'll just transfer that to some other account, or just delete it, because they actually need to make ends meet for some reason. The whole digital thing is just it's too prone to be actually forced as the DM. You'd be like, oh, I have to do this to you guys because that's what they would do. Up until recently, you could do the whole digital credit thing, without that even coming to our minds. We never even thought about that, in the old days of playing all the games with just, credits. You've got your little data pad, Cash App Me or whatever you want to call it. Now we have to take on that real notion that's what these governments would do. Hell, the governments might do it even if you were a stand-up citizen, just because it came audit time and someone made an error at that HQ, and sorry, you don't have any money and you can't prove you ever did. You know what I mean? They could just digitally erase your ass.
Well, I feel like it would be a sort of last resort option, because if a government is that authoritarian, or in this case totalitarian, that it just, we slightly suspect that you might disagree with our system, so we're gonna take all of your money. By that point, it'll be happening so often that people will just say, you know what, screw this. We're gonna just take up arms and fight against this. We're not gonna need to pay. I'm just gonna give you guns that I'm manufacturing, whatever weapons that I'm building over here. I'm just gonna give them to you for free because they just took all my money too. So this can't keep happening.
It doesn't work that way. What happens is there's massive starvation, and people go over to a barter system. The whole point really comes down to is you get a sub currency that comes about, and the other part that comes into it is we're talking about shutting stuff off, but again, you have to have a centralized government where there is no other governments out there, which maybe that works in Imperium Third ID. What is it, the Imperium? We can do it, but it doesn't work if you have multiple governments. I mean, we can look at it. Not trying to get too political now. They did that to Russia, and guess what? It's completely backfired on them, because at the end of the day, commodities mean more than the financial system. Anyway, I don't want to get too political about that aspect, but the other thing is, we were talking about this for digital. Let's not forget one other thing. If you're doing something like a centralized currency, what do you do when we're going to use 40K in this example? When you can no longer communicate to these planets because they're trapped by the warp, it means nothing, because all of a sudden what they're going to do is they're going to go to something else. Well, the French life is somewhat, but like everything else, everyone has their own currency. Well, that's my whole point. Is there's always ways to trade in between them, because what does that represent? This is why when I start looking at the centralized currency, it doesn't mean too much, because you have to, especially in a Bitcoin aspect, how are you going to transfer it fast enough in the universe? So now you get a lag. Well, guess what? You gave me a certain amount of money. That's not going to show up for what, 3 to 6 months? Well, again, I don't want to get political from that aspect, but but if you look at it from years ago, from 2000, they had the Haqqani network, which they could not break because it didn't use the Swift system. And the Swift system, it only works as long as everyone buys into said system. And when they don't buy into said system, it's relatively meaningless. And then you get parallel systems like the mirror now.
Yeah.
You know, that's what, and to be fair on this, you still have people trading in gold. You still have people trading in other stuff that has a certain value. And so it's not the same. Yeah, but those are the way that I look at it is, you know, how do people deal with drugs? There's still parallel systems out there. They just don't tell you what they're using.
Charlotte, real quick, can I ask you a question? Because you're in the UK. I just heard that if you spend over $1,000 in cash at one expenditure, they can literally arrest you now, or they're planning on doing that. Is that a thing, or did I hear wrong?
I heard you say that a while ago, and to me that sounds completely ridiculous. Like, I won't put it past it, but I won't say that that's not something that I believe that somebody could have thought of, because people have thought of dumber things recently. But it just seems like there are so many individual items that cost more than $1,000, and making them all illegal to purchase in Britain doesn't seem like something that would ever pass.
No, in actual cash, not a
Oh,
transaction.
in
In actual
Oh.
paper. Yeah.
That is way more believable.
Okay, well, but again, I'm trying to say, and I saw where DM James, you can have a civilization. I mean, you had the European civilizations along with the British that were far flung, even when it took a couple of months to go back and forth. You know, that's
It all depends on range.
I don't want to get overly political where everyone's trying to do this. If we're going to do it, then represent it for space, because we can go way down and do this. But the whole thing that comes down to it is like, okay, the other part is, and this is what's funny, okay, you've closed it. Now what do you do to these people? Because there's nothing you can do. But now you can't do it. It's because once you've ostracized someone from a system, you have zero control over them anymore. That's what happened with Russia. If anyone's heard about this, is they said they're getting pissed off because Russia's not using dollars, and Russia said, I would use dollars, but we aren't allowed to use them. And so now what do you do? Because that's the other aspect. So it's not that necessarily the people will rebel, but what they'll do. But again, it comes down to what happens when you're cut off. As everyone's doing all this stuff, but what happens when you're cut off from your planet? Because
Don't, Dan, don't.
No,
it's
you're too epic.
well, you can't do that, James. You have to have two people to do seppuku.
They did that? That is epic. And sad that they removed that law, because that is necessary for our society to return to its I'm doing it again, aren't I? Whatever, I'm already here. That is a necessary step to be taken for the reclamation of our society. And the fact that Britain, of all a fully constitutional monarchy, is even considered such steps is amazing.
But no, I mean, those are the things that so those are what's coming into it. Is what do you do with the system when you lose power communication? Because at that point, especially for Imperium, now you could try doing some things that you can carry certain ones, but are they going to carry
Agreed.
Aspects of, are you going, this is the other part that comes down to, are you going to do something like a Bitcoin where it's set to a certain limit and then you give it to each planet? And maybe that's the better way of controlling it. I don't have to control a planet. I can just control on how much gets traded in between the two planets. So that's
Right, but I mean, think, in a futuristic, game situation, they're going to really, especially, when we're talking about like alien species, they're going to have some pretty draconian laws. Us humans are kind of squishy,
Very.
This is what I hate, is when people say humans are squishy. We have one of the highest constitutions and one of the best abilities to eat.
No, I meant emotional. I meant like, we're getting, away from our rugged, roots of old, and there are going to be species out there that are hardcore when it comes to their ideology, as well as physically being tougher and more hive mind like and things like that. You're going to get a lot of species that are going to sort of impose, or at least try to impose their banking systems on larger or empires that they belong to. You're going to end up with some pretty drastic laws from time to time or place to place that you really got to think of. This whole sort of generic credit system might not even work on some worlds. You go there and they just yeah, sure, you can land, and then they just take everything.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, that's true for anywhere whenever you're playing a space game. But the other aspect is, let's say that you go to a hive world. A hive world isn't going to be using any cash because
because they're a hive.
Well, when I say hive world, I mean we're talking like a hive as far as insect like. I have to classify because a lot of people look 40K hive world. But if you do that,
Right.
Yeah, then what they're doing is they're going to trade. Then it's going to be a barter system for them. We need X. What do you want? And that's where you're really arguing about. But they're not going to have any money. It's going to be meaningless to them. They're going to look at you like, you know what? We need salt. You're like, okay, we can get you salt. And then you're like, well, what do they have that I want? You're like, well, you have a special type of fungus. It's like, okay, well, we'll take that special type of fungus because it has hallucinogenic properties. And that's illegal in 12 out of 14 star systems. But guessing how much we can make off of this. But that's where you get some of your adventure in your game. Is not only do you have to trade with them, we're all talking about the dystopian aspect. And sometimes, to be honest, I get tired of all the dystopian crap, whether it makes sense or not. That's not why I play a game. I mean, we have Ming the Merciless, which is still dystopian, but it's pulp with Flash Garden. And you still have what are you trading? What is your tribute to the king this year? That's the other part. What is the tribute? That was part of the remember when they had the Landsrad in a Dune, and there's always agreements in there. What are you trading? How do we make money? The Atreides made money off of rice because there were other places like the Harkonnens that were purely they have no natural. Well, let me phrase it. They can't produce enough of their own food because they've screwed everything. Well, we don't know why they would come to Earth. That's the whole thing. Maybe it's because you're really coming for the atmosphere. Some of it, maybe you're just coming to vacation. Then you're left with the weird thing. If we're coming to vacation and you go, okay, what would aliens have that we want?
Well, to be honest, kind of off topic. I think the rarest thing they would find here is us, and what they could do with us. Sky's the limit,
because aliens actually secretly came down to Earth 2,000 years ago, Earth 5,000 years ago. And
I'm
genetically
talking.
modified monkeys made humans as slave labor forces, and then left, and now we are the products of alien monkey hybrids. And then a couple thousand years later, they sent an alien down.
Okay.
No, I'm talking in a future situation. If you look at it realistically, most of the stuff, except for the plant life, you can find easier anywhere else you go. But even our animals and things like that might be kind of a big deal. That's probably rarer than all the other ingredients. You're probably more likely to find chlorophyll and other things, but like the way we like going to zoos and having pets and eating delicacies, things like that might actually be kind of a big deal in other galactic empires.
Well, that's what
I mean,
how would they trade in tourism? I mean, because you go to a backwater world called Earth, what do you trade to go have a nice vacation with your family?
I totally agree, Justin. Yeah. I wish. I just hope it's empty.
I don't want to. There's some weird things I've seen about the moon, but
same here.
But there's some. But that's what I'm saying is that if they come here, we always think about the big giant trade, but could you imagine going over and saying, well, you know what? This one's
for you, Jackson.
Wait, yep.
Amen, brother.
But that's the thing is, why do we always have to assume that they're coming in there to try and make everything? It's just the Earth is very beautiful. Maybe they just come down for our sunsets because our sunsets look cool compared to what they see. Maybe they
You
come
should
down.
see the ones we get here in the high desert, my friend.
Oh,
They
yeah.
are gorgeous. They are freaking gorgeous.
That they are.
And the other part is that you're going down and like, okay, well, mojitos, and then you go, well, these humans, they don't have the interstellar communications. We don't want to allow them. The funny part is, well, we kind of want to leave them backwater, so it's cheap.
Absolutely, Brian. That's why we know we're okay. At least for the time being. And Grandma, this is hysterical. Abduction fishing trips for aliens. They catch and release. And James chimes in. Maybe the aliens show up because they have to build a hyperspace bypass. I'm guessing he's a big fan of The Hitchhiker's Guide.
Well, that never. Yeah, I mean, those are the things that when you're starting to come into it. But speaking of 40K, they centralize everything. But the problem is, by the time it gets to bureaucracy, they're asking for things that may be 50 or 60 years out of date. That's what. Well, everyone says that, but honestly, at a certain point, if you can take all this time and effort to travel to the Earth, you probably have everything you ever need, which means you're coming probably more as a like a safari than anything else, unless you need a place to live.
Six Nations. Here's the thing. I believe in this strong 33 and a third % rule. Good, bad, and indifferent. And it's just how the dice roll. If someone were to ever come here, roll your percentile and see what you get. Because there's going to be good things out there, bad things out there, and things that don't give a flying frick about us, and just keep on going looking for something better. Because they'd be bombarded by all our radio broadcasts long before they get here, and they're just going to be like, avoid this freaking redneck dump.
Well, you know what? Here's what's going to happen. They're going to look at The Mandalorian, and they're just going to say, they're going to look at some of that stuff, and they're just going to go, yep, it's not worth going. They're like, well, you ruined it before. We came to because you created this great thing called Star Wars: The Last Starfighter, and then we come back and we see this crap from other stuff. But the real point is, there's not. I hate saying this. If they're coming out from,
I've heard that with you, James.
Yeah, they
There's a lot of theories about why we
haven't
seen the aliens.
Say hide, but they may not. They may actually come over here to convert us to their religion.
What's a huge assumption there, Mac? Just for clarification, because is bebopping all over the place.
I'm going to say, okay, which games do trading the best?
Traveler's got it down to a science. You could do it, nuts and bolts, or you could just do it real abstract. It's up to you as the GM. That's what's so cool about the later, or even all the Travelers. You could pick, exactly what you want on all aspects of the game. You want to, set your tech limit. You can set it at, it's only going to go up to this high, or you can do like I do, and every planet's different. Every system is different.
I'm going to bring up something. We talk about trade, but here's an important thing. What is the value of an iPhone on a planet that doesn't have communication networks?
Gotcha back.
Well, we say used up, but that may not. You can recycle at a certain point. It's not like you can destroy a lot of stuff. But here's the other part that comes into it. Well, everyone says that, but let's be honest. If you can put enough effort to travel somewhere, and you can you can travel quickly, unless you're absolutely desperate, you're just going to look at the Earth like, well, we can terraform whatever you want. We're coming to really, for the sites and things. How much effort does it take? It's like, how many times have we been to the moon? How much times have we been to the moon? No, well, it's
probably more than they're telling us. Just going to leave it there.
My view is, have we been to the moon in the first place? That's one. And then
I was about to say, it's a 50-50 chance that he says that we've never been there or that we've been there a million times.
well,
and I guess...
memes is currency, James. That's pretty funny.
That's my new ideology.
The other part that I think that comes into it is, I don't know about Traveller 5. I know that the Traveller Mongoose, basically you can run the trade in the back of the book as its own game.
Yep. I've been in games like that where that's all it was, and I'm like, I want to freaking shoot something. I have heard nothing about Traveller 5, and to be honest, even though Shauner will freaking scream at hearing this, I think almost any version of Traveller, if you're into it and you want to run it, you can play it. People call games broken, but yet just about every game out there got played a lot and people were enjoying it. And like Bo said earlier this week, I want to have fun when I'm gaming, and if everybody's of a like mind and they all enjoy the game and they're cool with the rules, then just do that. Enjoy the game that you've shelled out your hard-earned credits for, and play it. And if you find out after 6 months, a year, or 10 years you want something different, there's a whole big wide world of games out there to go and pick another one. The constant need to keep publishing or republishing or rewriting rules, with the only goal in mind is to keep printing books. At some point, we're not even going to get books anymore. We're only going to get PDFs, and I won't be there. I'll still be playing my AD&D and my Traveller and Boot Hill and Gamma World, because I'll still have the books unless they disintegrate or something. So
I'm going to bring this up as books will eventually become more of a luxury, which is what they're kind of doing. But I just the whole thing that comes into it. The whole thing okay, Mac. Back to trade. But anyway, we keep on getting off of that. Whether it's books or anything else, that's the other thing that could be traded. They don't print books anymore. Well, we'll bring this out, but ever since I saw the paperless office, how much more paper have we generated or used?
I know, but the powers that be, it's in their best interest to go the full digital route so that they can actually curtail anything and everything, because that's that seems to be the current trend, is control every single aspect of our lives.
Well, yeah, but I'm not too worried about them, because there's only a certain amount. At a certain point, as you're wasting more resources than if you stop trying to control everyone's life. You get this weird thing in there, and the bigger point, of course, comes down to then you can take my other stuff.
I don't know how that's going to work. Let's say you get either one of them. There's only so much you can cut and shoot before you're like the last guy standing, or somebody else takes you out. I'd rather be able to hold up somewhere with a good book, or 1,000.
Well, yeah, but that's because the most important thing to you is your stuff.
Matt Thompson, I think that you're going to look like Henchman 21 when he got the lightsaber. Do you remember remember when they got that?
Yes. Speaking of which, Jackie and I need to revisit our Venture Brothers DVDs, because
Venture Brothers? Yeah. Never heard of it.
Only the greatest cartoon, anime, whatever you want to call it, ever.
Okay, I'm gonna step in. This is an intervention. Calling it an anime is genuinely heresy, because anime, and I quote, is gay.
Oh my god. Anyway, so
James, this is why we keep him locked up in his room and only let him out on rare occasions.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying.
I know it's a cartoon, but cartoon these days just has that weird feel to it, like it's the way they used to view them when they first came out, that they're only for kids, and Venture Brothers.
Doesn't anime have a worse connotation?
Oh, absolutely. But you got the two extremes there, really.
Here's what it comes down to: is they were too cheap to make, like real sitcoms, so they went over for animation. Oh, I've seen Space Janitors.
I never even heard of it.
It was on Geek and Sundry when Geek and Sundry was good. With Space Janitors.
I'm not even gonna highlight that comment there, James. Yes, Venture Brothers is.
I
is
want a
one of.
clarification on that.
You'll have to do that in private chat. Venture Brothers is easily in my top 5 favorite of anything that's ever been on the big screen or small screen.
It's not on the big screen yet.
I agree with and Son.
That's going to be my new name from now on.
And Son, I know somewhere I actually did that. I put and Son as like the last name, and someone actually thought it was a real last name, and I'm like, oh my god, no.
Yeah.
So we're talking. Well, I still want to stick with the trade because I think it's so important for any RPG game. What's funny is, the one thing where it's handwave more is look at fantasy. Fantasy almost uses no trading mechanics.
Yes, true. Even though that would be a more likely situation if you think about it, especially in the low magic settings, where when you're talking about low magic, you're usually talking about low money. And what the Jesus, kid scared the crap out of me while I was going up the stairs. But I dropped something. Where you wouldn't even have coins. The people are so poor that you want anything, you're trading, and if you God help you, if you want something made out of metal, you're going to be bringing a cow, 8 chickens, and a goat to get that long sword that you need.
Oh, I'm going to bring one other thing up, which is, has anyone watched Avenue 5?
Because I don't think that show counts as anime, Charlotte. I think that counts as cartoon.
I'm so what?
Anime just means Japanese. That's all it means. It's just a Japanese cartoon. So that's.
I'm so confused by that sentence.
Well, you know what? Stop being like I'm Bobby, and you'll be okay. No.
Boy ain't right.
I know. No,
I tell you what.
But no, that's
Oh, James, you win the chat once again. You win the chat once again, and your prize is let me pick somebody random. Okay, Brian, you have to paint an entire army for James and ship it off to him by the end of the year. There you go, James.
I think what James L is that he, your reward is to be with Jeffrey Dahmer, and then you can fight over the leftovers. Yeah, but I think those are the when you
right.
The other part is how poor do you want to keep the characters? That's what comes.
Low fantasy, yeah, it can be real low.
But I mean, how poor do you want to keep the characters to keep them adventuring? The problem I had with Traveler was if you're doing the trading aspect and it can act as its own mini game, then why are you playing?
That's awful kind of you there, James.
That's okay. I'll let you get Emperor Norton. You only need one.
Army of 1 millimeter miniatures are already in the mail as we speak.
Miniatures.
Hey, you know what? I have a bunch of them. They're called grains of sand. There's your whole army.
The microscope is not included.
Yeah, that's well. Remember when we used to play chits? You don't need to have all these miniatures. That's what miniatures are for rich kids. Those were, I
literally have like almost every micro game. I have most of the TSR pocket games, all those little games that came in those little tiny packages. I've got just about all of them, and I miss them. There's so many that I went through this phase of buying all of them way before Jackie could even read, and I was getting some that I'd never played before, and to this day I know I'll never get to play 90% of all those chit games that I have, and it's a shame too because they're kind of worth a lot of freaking money, and it would be so easy to like print up your own of those games, maybe even print them and make them better than they were, with the current technology. Take the original printing of Ogre, take it, photocopy the crap out of it, do the counters, and you're good to go. And then you could just hand out copies. We had so much fun in high school and middle school playing those games in the lunch cafeteria, playing Ogre and Warp War and games like that with one little 6-sided die and those counters and a tiny little map that was basically a sheet of printer paper folded in half and then in half again.
Well, the old BattleTech with the standees, I mean, it's not that you can't do a lot of stuff. Here's the other part is, we're talking, going back to PDFs. As much as people talk about PDFs, we have more RPGs out now than we ever did as a kid, with more print versions. And if you don't believe in how popular they are, look at the number, even for Games Workshop on collector's editions with leatherette. These weren't when they're selling leatherettes. Those are not to normal people. Those are to people like myself. They're sometimes collectors. The other part is just like board games. Do you remember? Yeah.
What was it? Crafty Back Craft says he has a copy of, I guess, Modiphius's Dune or something like that. That's like $30,000 for a copy of that book. I'm like, it's where do you live again?
I think it was like
just kidding.
Well, he wanted like $600 or something, but I'm going, well, I have, I forgot what this one was. I bought it for half price, oddly enough, but there's my Exalt. Well, let's see. There's my.
We can't. Yeah, we haven't seen you all night, Omen. Not even sure that you're alive. Okay.
But I mean,
until now we could have.
Edition, and I forgot how much this was. This is like, I think about it half price at $170 or something. But I have a lot of collector's editions, but okay, I can afford them. But even look at board games. Look at with Kickstarter, people want physical items, even when we were talking about PDFs. Don't get me wrong. We know when the Trove was around, the Trove sold me more physical copies of books than anything else. And
they couldn't come to grips with losing their property, even though it was just doing people a favor and getting it was the equivalent of, like you said, the free starter editions. Well, any good gamer wants physical copies, just like physical currency. You want it in your hands, and you want to decide how and when and where to spend it, and when and where to read it. If you don't have power, your PDFs are worthless. If you don't have, like me, I've got a bunch of PDFs on this tablet, and it's so hard for me to use my devices to read these PDFs as opposed to pull out the book and then use my device as like for ambient music, or I'm listening to a video, because I can watch, or I should say listen to any video and read a book at the same time, and I can still absorb 60 to 75% of what I'm listening to while I'm reading. And I'll hold my place if it's the topic or whatever is really interesting and I don't want to miss it.
I'm going to mention one other thing. Do you remember as kids and how often dice are? Look at how many dice companies there are. People want physical things to touch, whether they admit it or not. That's the problem with, I think, a lot of these is we talk about it, but and how much, why are they producing cards? Why are they producing all this other stuff? We have more, we have a plethora of physical things, and yes, there's a PDF in there.
Exactly, Brian. That's the other thing. At some point, it could be in 5 years where all your PDFs, unless you know a guy who knows a guy who can keep your devices running, over the years or decades, your PDFs will just be, memories. They won't be physical copies. You won't even be able to read them. You might not even be able to use the same outlets to charge up your devices in, 20 years.
Well, here's the other part. Is anyone remember Microfiche?
Guess they're doing something right.
Remember Microfiche?
Mm-hmm.
Try finding a Microfiche reader now for all those aspects. That now, admittedly, a lot of it's been digitized, which is better. I'm not going through it, but the other thing is look at dice and miniatures. As much as we talk about this, RPGs, miniatures, all of this has exploded in the last few years compared to what it was before. And we have a better selection than we ever did as kids. What were the ones we had? Valpartha, we had a couple of other ones, and that was about it. Well, I like.
Same here, Mac.
I have both, and I still like having PDFs too. So I have to search for something. Control F is my friend.
Right, but how easy is it going to be to keep transferring that digital library over to the next new device? Years from now.
It's to be fair on this, I put a lot of stuff on the Blu-rays, and I'll buy stuff on the. But you're right, a lot of them aren't coming with the Blu-rays. So you have transferred over. But I have the PDFs are not the issue. At the end of the day, I like the tactile. I like having something tactile to touch, and that's so important to me. I like the feel. There's
Brian, I tossed out all my cassettes a couple years ago because I couldn't find anything, and I knew if I put them in a brand new machine, they would just go and I would ruin the new tape player. It's a shame. So many things I taped off the radio that you can't find. I've looked on the internet for old music, and some of it's just just gone, man.
Here's the other part, though, is we talk about things, whether it's books or anything else. Some of it just comes down to that there's a war in IP. So I have DVDs that they don't produce anymore. Like, you want to talk about VHS? Look at Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You can't get that anymore because Warner Brothers and Disney still fighting over that. So physical media has a purpose to it. That's now I have some games that don't come into it, but I gave you the PDF for this. I have a physical copy, and yet
I'm real sorry to hear that, Justin.
Yeah, well, that's why I put everything on a Blu-ray myself. That's one of the things that I always try doing. Is I said if the computer goes down, I'll have something else with it just in case. But I still love physical copy. I'll tell you this much though: is you have to box up books whenever you move. Holy hell! You're like, can I get a PDF? Or the other part is like whenever I go to my friend's house, I'll bring my tablet, I'll bring my iPad, and it has all the PDFs for whatever game we're playing.
I don't deny that it's not handy, especially if you travel. I used to travel a lot, and it would have been this was before I even owned a tablet or even a cell phone. I would literally have like half a dozen books in my bags with me, and being able to carry one device, provided you could charge it and what have you, would have been such an ease on my aching back trying to carry some of that heavy stuff.
But
I just worry that someday Jackie will be one of the few people who still has books. Try buying a book these days. Just a regular book. Look how crazy expensive old paperbacks are.
Okay, I'm going to mention one thing because I remember buying the old paperbacks. Some of them are cheaper nowadays, even if they reprint them. But it just amazes me on the, I used to buy them for what, $4 when
I remember that,
Charlie. Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, that sucked. But there are always ways of doing it, but you have to do it with a new medium, and it amazes me at how fast things are moving. But I think that I probably have bought more books in the last few years than I have when I was younger. And
no kidding, Mac. No kidding.
And people still love books. We're all talking about this dystopia and everything. yet there's more books being produced now than there were when we were being kids. And what is the number one seller? What's probably number two now is you got the Quran and you've got the Bible. It's like, oh, okay, well, how many versions of the Bible do you want? Which translation? But they're just things. I hate saying this. We all talk about
wow. Yeah.
But they're just things. People are what matters. So it's but at the end of the day, we have these. A lot of them are still being able to print out. If you guys want to print out your old TSR modules, it's not that hard. Here's what you do: is you can go to Drive-Thru-RPG. You can get an 11x17 printer. You print them out. You fold them in half and you staple them, and you're going to have probably something just as good.
Well, something that will last longer. I know a lot of my modules in my collection, originals, are in danger of the covers falling apart into two halves because it was just folded paper that wasn't meant to be opened and closed 1,000 times. Literally, over the years, that friction is going to destroy the integrity of those covers. Just with like a lot of other things. That's why I'm actually trying to buy all my books in hardback, because they last longer. I've got 100-year-old hardbacks that are in better shape than 10-year-old paperbacks.
I'll say this much. If we're going to talk, I know you're going to probably end in a couple minutes here. The book binding from the old TSR stuff, from the old. Remember my my original Player's Handbook, which I bought in like '82, got soaked from rain, and that thing still has a better binding than most of the books I can buy nowadays. And now I don't know what condition it is in now, but last time I checked, it still was in good shape around 2000. I say, it's completely warped. Don't get me wrong, it's completely warped, and yet the
challenge accepted, Brian. I think I'm going to read this one out because this is a good one. I got a mission for you all. Find a replacement for the Trove. If you find something like that in your internet-y travels, let us all know about it too. Yes, and if not, at least start taking down the names of Pirate Bay sort of places you can get certain books. I picked up a couple books in my files now. I forget what they are. I think it might have been Champions and something else. Just because it was out there, there are places and people, if these, especially the older games, between, the advent of AD&D up until like second edition, there were a bunch of great games back then that nobody cares about. But if you pick them up, Omen and I were talking about this a while ago, there's some good nuggets in just about everything you can read when it comes to gaming. And, that one little spark that you might have gotten from an old book might spark a whole campaign.
I'm going to mention one other thing, though, when we're talking about this, is, and I don't have any problems with it, but a lot of companies, like Brian and I were talking today about my Battlestar Galactica board game. You can't buy it anymore.
I've done that many a time.
But you can't buy a lot of that stuff anymore because they lost the IP, so they're not allowed to reprint it. And here's the other part too, Charlotte, is they're a little political, but Russia no longer recognizes copyright in the West. So
buy books on eBay from Russia. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that they no longer recognize copyright, and as such, that if you can, you can get everything over there, and they
Common
don't
Russian W.
So that's the problem that they have with it. Is this whole thing of we're talking about trade, but there's intellectual trade right there. Would often you go, if you suddenly isolate a country, guess what? It no longer recognizes your international rules either. And now what do you do? And that's the other part when we're talking about currencies and things. It's like, okay, guess what? We no longer recognize the credit in Traveler. You have to use our currency. And there is no direct equivalent, which now you're kind of stuck.
Duh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to shut the show down. I've got to go do people stuff nobody wants to see. Thank you guys all for joining us tonight. I hope everything went okay with Bo. Let's all give Bo a huge shout out. If you have not subscribed to Bo Paints Minis, please go over there and do that. He made a video last week. Mind you, he's only got, he's under 50 subs. He made a video that I think we can all relate to, and it hit 655 views in less than 5 days. So if you are not subscribed, go out there, subscribe to him. Squirrel Hermit as well. RPG Grandma. Anybody else? Brian from Weird World War II. Definitely go check his channel out. One of the funnest channels out there. Good night, Grandma. Good night, Mac. Good night, Six Nations. Justin, I will see you Justin Monday, I hope. Let's all keep praying for our good friend Hungar. And a few other people out there who'd probably like to remain not anonymous with their own health issues. But there's a lot of us old timers and even some of us younger folks out there that could use some positive vibes. And when I'm done doing my people stuff, you can catch me over on the Quantum Show with Nathan Allen, trying to bring some positivity to the rest of our lives that are outside the gaming experience. Because I said at the beginning of this year, I'm going to do everything I can to remain positive and spread some positivity. Right, Jackie?
Yes. Yeah. Positivity.
Just remember, next year, people, total solar eclipse. So if you get your chance, go see it.
Oh, hey, by the way, before you end the video, can you let me out of the basement? Because the method you've been cooking is really starting to get to me. I mean, the dog head up there is starting to talk to me, and Omen hasn't talked for a full minute.
Oh, my God. That's my boy. The boy ain't right, but I love him to death. I love all you guys very much as well. Have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully I will see you real soon. And if not, come back here next Saturday. We'll have something else to talk about. And if you guys have a sci-fi topic, not that we're running low, but, you guys have been so cool. If there's something you think we could, mush to death and beat into a fine pulpy paste in the sci-fi realm, go ahead and put in the comment section here, and we'll put them on a list, and we'll do like we do on the other shows and start bringing some of you guys' topics to the.
I'm going to bring one up if you want to think about it. Is what is your favorite tech level to play at for sci-fi?
Okay, I like that one. I do like that one. I'll save my answer for later.
Yeah. And why?
But I really like that one a lot. Light of the world, say it. Whoa. Say it the earth. Thank you, Six Nations. I love that. Sun thinks Owen Owl is here. That's funny. Non-corporeal minds, group mind, or hive creatures. I do not know, James. Again, topic for another time. Which one is the glowing guy? I like the cut of his jib. That is my son. That is Jackson, the one and only, the son from Shadow and Son. He just killed his name for some reason, or did I do that? I don't know what happened.
When you pull up a comment, when you highlight a comment, the names disappear.
Oh, okay.
I thought he wasn't going to wear
Yeah, check out his channel. His channel does not exist yet, but we will keep you posted, Charlotte. And Charlotte, I'm still waiting for those pictures. Still waiting for those pictures of those minis. I can't wait to see them. Party on, everybody. Well said, Justin. Everybody else, until we see you guys again, happy trails, and remember to play the games you love with the people you love, and everything's going to be just fine. Good night, everybody. And Omen and Jackson, if you guys want to sit and argue in the green room, I'm going to leave that open. Otherwise, you can just wait for Connell's show tomorrow. But good night, all.